Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee, Certified Brewhead, and welcome to episode 127 of Beer and Other Shit, the podcast, Adjunct series. We are back, as you can tell if you are watching as opposed to listening. We're back in Canada after 5 weeks in America. We were only able to do, I think, 2 podcasts during that time. Things got kind of hectic. I kind of want to do a pod with Tiff and talk about everything we discovered there, because it was a very, very fun trip back on the exploring vibe that I hadn't done for like 3 years, since like pre-2020. So it was really, really good. The weather was exceptional. It was just glorious. And now today specifically, we're recording this, Hamilton turned it on. It was just phenomenal. So I'm feeling like I'm back in Miami right now. So we have a phenomenal episode tonight, guys. I'm very, very excited for this one. But of course, as always, this episode is brought to you by our good friends at Manscaped. So, guys, of course, it is still spring for another month, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And our friends at Manscaped have the best tools for some spring cleaning. They've already helped you tidy up all the nooks and crannies of your body's basement. But this year, Manscaped can help you get the perfect presentation on that beautiful face with the new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Make sure you look your best this spring by using code BAOS and get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. You know the vibes. So, beards. It's beard season, right? It's time to tame your mane with the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. The sun is peeking back out like it did today, which means you'll have to show your face in daylight again, proudly. So use the kit to make sure your scruff looks award-winning, whether you got glorious beard flow or some smooth, sleek cheeks. The kit starts off with the Beard Hedger, which is this bad boy here, a waterproof cordless trimmer with a rotary wheel. I don't know why I picked that up. That gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of add-ons. Look at this glorious thing in this case. Look at this case, rock solid, mate. Beautiful. Look at it. It comes with the titanium coated T-blades under here that are tough on hair and smooth on your face, leading to single stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. The Beard Hedger is a high-tech piece of art, people, in travel size package with a long-lasting battery, universal charging, and a strong-ass motor. Now, the kit has the liquid goods to make you feel good, starting with the beard shampoo and conditioner. Why am I shaking that at you? You can't treat your beard like you treat your pubes. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Thought it was all the same. But it's not. It's not. That's why the kit has a special shampoo and conditioner. Look at that. Right there for you. Specially designed to moisturize, reduce ingrown hairs, and replenish your beard's natural oils and promote beard health, of course. Now, the kit also has Manscaped Beard Oil, which is my fave right here. The nutrient-infused oil relieves dryness on both the beard and the skin beneath while adding a little shimmer and shine to liven up the look. Cap it off with the Beard Balm. Mate, Beard Balm is underrated. A pomade that shapes, styles, and moisturizes, bringing the amazing scent of fresh eucalyptus from my hometown, rosemary, and lavender essential oils. Not to mention the Beard Hedger Pro Kit also comes with 3 free gifts. This one's my other fave, too. A beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. This is the brush little shoe thing, and I always like to give it a little once over before the pod. You know the vibes. So guys, you know what to do. You gotta save 20% off and get free shipping with the code BAOS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code BAOS. Focus on the face and use the Beard Hedger Pro Kit for the cleanest look in the game. So this pod is gonna be super fun. So I'm just gonna get right into it, guys. I was about to explain it, but I think it's just easier if we just bring everyone in. So guys, please welcome Nathan from NathanDoesBeer and Jennifer from Beertown in the building. You wonderful people. How you both doing?
Oh, I'm great. I'm so happy to be here and just drink a lot of IPAs tonight.
Ooh, it's going to be a good one. So first of all,
ready
Nate,
for it.
Nate, ready? Nate, lovely to see your beautiful face again. It's been a minute, and
it has been a minute. Yeah, it's good to have you back on this side of the border, so we can get back to having the co-hosted pod vibes.
Oh yes, I'm stoked for all this. There's a lot of work coming. And Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us. This is gonna be a super interesting one, and I'm gonna let you explain everything. But you have curated a fantastic lineup of beers tonight from 2 phenomenal Ontario breweries. So I'm gonna let you talk about the first one whilst we whip that bad boy out.
Yeah, 100%. So we're going to be enjoying some collaboration brews tonight that we did between Beertown and these two fantastic breweries, Third Moon and Sawdust. But kind of in order to complete the story, we're going to start off with the OG. So we'll be starting off with Lone Pine, which is a very famous West Coast IPA from Ontario, Sawdust City Brewery up in Ravenhurst, Ontario.
Classic.
And
Such a
then
good choice.
yeah, such a classic. I have so much to say about Lone Pine. We've been pouring it at Beertown for like at least 8 years. So it's one of our
Wow.
flagship IPAs there. And then we'll be following it up with Third Moon's flagship IPA, which is just a hazy New England style IPA. And then our collabs. So yeah, we're
Love
going
it.
to start off with Lone Pine. I'm going to pour myself one as well.
Yes. This is one of Nate and I have. We actually did an episode last year. Actually, it might have even been this year. Nate, you can correct me. About West Coast IPAs, and we just picked the style because it's something that we've been both very passionate about. And this was one of the beers that we had on that. And this is just, one of the beers that both of us got into like a decade plus ago here in Ontario. That kind of, was a big part of our personal craft beer journeys as well. So it's very exciting to drink this anytime, because I always feel like flagships sometimes get a little overlooked, and they don't deserve to be so, they need to be spoken about.
Yeah, they really do. And go ahead, Nate.
No, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think something that's really remarkable about this being Sawdust City's flagship IPA is that it is a West Coast. And, West Coast IPAs are great. Certainly, I know that the recipe has slightly changed over the years, but it's still very true to the first time I had it over a decade ago. And Sawdust hasn't flinched. Like, they've added some really great New England style IPAs, hazy IPAs to their lineup, but this continues to perform really well at Beertown. People love it. We have a set of guests, which I'll talk about later, that have actually checked in this beer over 1,000 times on Untapped at various Beertown locations and up in the tap room at Sawdust City. And Sam has told me that outside of the tap room, and maybe he's just like, stroking my ego, but that we pour some of the freshest Lone Pine in the province outside of the tap room, just because of the sheer volume of it that we're going through. And I don't know, it just makes me happy that it's still so celebrated amongst the haze craze.
Well said. Could not agree more.
Great.
And with that, shall we cheers and get it in us?
Yeah,
cheers, guys.
Do it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh. This is such a phenomenal beer. Like,
yeah,
it's got to be one of the longest running flagships that is just so damn good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you got that like.
Yeah, there are probably a couple that have been around a little bit longer. Maybe on the West Coast IPA front, but like we were talking about when we were doing the West Coast episode, like one of the things that we were saying is that this is certainly one of the most accessible West Coast IPAs in Ontario. Yes. With Sawdust's range in LCBOs across the province. And of course with the number of places that pour it fresh like Beertown does. There's almost there's very little places in the province that you can go without getting at least a can of Lone Pine, if not on tap.
100%. And like I did notice when we started onboarding more IPAs that we did see a little bit of a dip in sales, but there seems to now be a resurgence for West Coasts. And so anytime I'm behind the bar or pouring this for a guest, or especially when we have guests like from down south come here and they just want like a range of different IPAs to try that really represent what's going on in the province, I love to start with this one. You get like that Summit Simcoe kind of Chinook mixture there. I think there's some Columbus hops in it as well.
Correct. Good memory.
And it's just like, it just, I don't know. It reminds me of the early days.
Yeah, it's like, I was about to say it's nostalgic. It's like a nostalgic beer that's grown, like you said, the recipe's been tweaked but not changed. So it's like grown with the times, which is really cool. And they've kept the hops true to style, but they've probably, like, without having one from 2011 or whatever, I imagine it's a lot brighter and a bit more tropical while still retaining that malt bill that just sort of gives that that backbone for all of that, piney resinous. But I think maybe it's just a little brighter than perhaps it used to be, would be my, if I could hazard a guess at what the change would be.
Yeah, that would be my, I mean, I think the malt bill is quite similar, and like it does, it sort of looks like that sort of classic West Coast look. Like when I last talked to Sam, I know they were using Canadian two row, a little bit of Crystal 45, Kara Munich Type 1, and something else that's not coming to me. And that's very, that's very reminiscent of the West Coast that I've had. But as Nathan, you pointed out, way more approachable than some of the others on the market.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely very, very approachable and accessible. I think those two things are really key. And obviously that's probably why it's such a success for you when you're introducing people to IPAs, or at least to Canadian or what's happening in Ontario. You give them this bad boy and, you really can't go wrong. It's
100%. And part of it too for us is like, we're a gateway beer bar. So, we're not necessarily in the business of making like a Jen Tamse beer geek beer list that's just going to speak to like what I like to drink or what people in the scene really enjoy. It's all about having a selection of beers that are stylistically diverse, so we can really tell a story and take people, the novices, through that story. It was like up until recently, we still had cans of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, because I felt that was such an iconic beer to represent sort of that 1980s kickstarting of the craft beer revolution, one of the first APAs to be ever made. Like, it's just crazy to me.
Was it
maybe
not
showing
the?
my age. It is the one.
Right?
Yeah. I think like maybe there was something else that was made in somebody's garage, but yeah, it's infamously like the first American pale ale, and that was in, I don't know, 1980, 1981. Like,
so wild.
Yeah, that's an absolute classic.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
almost every brewer, we used to have these questions lightning round at the end of every episode back in the day, and I think we either had the desert island beer or the beer that kind of like maybe your I can't remember what it was, like favorite of all time. Like pretty much the most common answer was the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, and it really seemed to have inspired a lot of people to start craft breweries and to really get into beer.
Yeah, and to start kind of playing with APA recipes and playing with what IPAs could be. And there's just been such a massive change and evolution, which and I see it with like our team members as well. Like when I host our beer tastings, or we're opening a new restaurant and I'm taking everyone through the beer academy, I like to kind of weave a tale to contextualize the styles. And like years ago when we first started introducing hazy IPAs, like even the novices didn't even really know what to do with what they were tasting. And now it's almost reversed. They're so used to drinking hazies that when I introduce like this guy here, Lone Pine, some of our younger team members are like, what is this?
We always joke about that, but I hadn't actually heard a real life anecdote. So that is that's hilarious.
It's a thing.
It's for real, eh?
It makes me feel old.
Oh gosh. Like if you think about it, it makes me feel old too, geez. If you think about people who got into beer like in the last 3 to 5 years, when haze was maybe at its peak, that's what they would have experienced. Pastry stouts, haze, maybe some lagers, and maybe some smoothies.
Yeah.
I had a brewer in Montreal, I forgot who it was, told me they were like, people come in and they drink the sour and be like, why isn't it like a smoothie? They didn't know that sours weren't all smoothies. I think it was 4 Origins. Yeah, I think they said that.
That
Crazy.
Totally, like I haven't had that question, but I've had, why isn't it fruited? Which is perhaps like a little bit more subtle, right? Like, but the only the only sours they've ever had are fruited sours. Like maybe
Gotcha.
not fully
Right.
smoothie sours, but there's definitely fruit in there.
So
And
yeah, so
yeah,
they haven't, like, they're not used to seeing like just a straight up dry hop sour like an OG Jelly King or
yeah,
like or Collective Arts Mash Up the Jam, just a straight up dry hop sour, like dry hop sour. They're not used to that.
they're not used to that. They expect fruit. They think that fruit is synonymous with sour, or
Mm,
they think that like one of the souring agents is the raspberry puree or something like that, as opposed to just
That's
like a
cute.
straight lacto kettle sour. Yeah, but like, why would you expect them to know any different, right? And I'm there
I
to
get it.
yeah,
educate.
yeah.
So, but it's fascinating for me. It keeps me happy.
Hey, it keeps that's a whole other job now required because the beer education is arguably more important because of this. Otherwise, how are
Yeah,
they going to know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And we're gonna taste the other three beers tonight. But the one thing I didn't consider when I pitched these two collabs to Sawdust and Lone Pine, along with these two beer geeks, Terry and Emma, was that it would be very confusing for our staff.
Because it's all four combinations of
Because
the
it's all four
word.
combinations and the names are very similar. And right when we switched to the last beer we'll have tonight, Lone Tree, we had a little bit of bone pine left, so we were doing a 4-way sampler paddle
Ah,
for guests,
that's cool.
which was absolutely wild and so much fun. But the staff were just cursing my name.
It's like they have to get the guests to repeat. Okay, so which one did you want again? Can you point
Yeah,
it
yeah,
out?
yeah.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
the West Coast or is that the East Coast?
it's so cool, and we'll explain what Jennifer's talking about a little more as we go. About what these sort of collabs are, you'll sort of see the thing, and I'm excited because I haven't had them all. Nate, you have had them all though.
I have, yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm the only newbie. You can educate me, guys, tonight. This is what's up. This is awesome. So I'd like to start off with your beer history, your personal beer history. So pre-Beertown, how did you discover craft beer, and how did that kind of turn into a career for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a super exciting story.
Doesn't have to be.
It's a little convoluted, but I had beer at a very early age. My parents are kind of heavy drinkers.
Shouts to them.
So I did go through a phase where I was just like, I wasn't one of those typical teenagers that just wanted to go out and drink, but I was friends with a group of very, very nerdy boys and gals on the trivia team in high school. And we would, after practice, go on over to this pub in London, Ontario, and order a Trappist quad or something else. And that was probably the first time that and actually, the Milos was the bar manager of that pub at the time. That's a long time ago. I don't know if either of you have been to his bar in London. But yeah, that's kind of how I broke into the scene, or discovered that beer could be more than just this like fizzy, pale yellow substance. That was what my conception of beer was, and it sort of blew my mind that beer didn't have to taste like that,
Mm.
and that it could be and is and was so much more. And that just started a very, very long journey of wanting to get my hands and trading online and trying to find as much beer as possible. And also it was, for me, it was cost accessible. Like whiskey was not, like as I got into university, poor kid, right? Beer was something I could actually afford to enjoy and discover and drink.
That's
So
dope. What year
yeah.
was this when you started really, nerding out over it?
Oh my gosh, maybe 2000 and 2003.
Oh wow. Okay. Like
2002. I was a little underage, but yeah. And then I got my foot in the industry in about 2006.
okay.
So that's when I started bartending and serving. Obviously a great way to make money on the side. And that's how I kind of got sucked into the hospitality industry. And I was always really interested in the mechanics and operations of how restaurants worked and efficiencies and things like that, which is less beer focused. And then I took some time off university, and I co-owned and operated a little music venue in London, Ontario in my early 20s. And while that space was like focused on, it was like a hipster dive bar. We sold a lot of PBR, but we also like partnered with Wellington Brewery and would bring in little 20-liter pins of cask conditioned beer for guests.
Okay.
And at that time,
Oh,
like
that's fun.
it was like nobody was serving cask beer back then.
Right.
I remember when like Spearhead was like first opening,
With the
and
Hawaiian
it was
Pale
like
Ale.
with the Hawaiian Pale
That was
Ale, and
such
that
a
was
big deal back then. Yeah, it was
Yeah, it really
huge.
was. It
Yeah.
really was for a number of reasons. And so that kind of was just another opportunity for me to take my nerdiness about beer and start curating lists, thinking about pricing, thinking about service of beer, and doing it in a way that was really accessible, because we weren't selling beer to beer geeks. We were selling beer in a music venue to people that were just there to get knockered and have a good time.
What was the venue called?
It was called APK Live.
I knew it. I knew it. I performed there twice.
Oh, did you?
I do
Amazing.
music, yeah. And it was like I had the Harry Potter and the bourbon soaked vanilla beans there, and it was the
for
first
Great Lakes.
when we toured. There was always shit beer, and I remember that distinctively in the plastic clear cup, like the red Solo cup, but a plastic one there, and I was like, wow, this is the first time. Like I was doing the beer selfies at the time. This is pre-podcast, like 2013, 2014, and I remember just being like stoked that I could get craft beer at one of the places we performed at, because we never could.
Yeah.
Maybe
that
we
was
met then. You actually looked familiar.
Yeah, we may have actually met. Because you do kind of look familiar as well. I can't take all the credit for that concept. Like it wasn't, there was a bunch of people that put a lot of sweat, blood, and tears into the space, and I took on ownership a little bit later because we didn't make a lot of money, and so I kind of stepped up to the plate to help manage the space, curate the beverage portfolio, work on the point of sale system, find ways for us to stay open. But it was a good time. It was a good time, and it was definitely an opportunity for me to kind of flex my beer muscles more from like trying to understand what would sell and how to train our staff about it, and make it accessible.
That's
so,
awesome. Yeah. That's really cool.
That's kind of how I started.
Okay. So then how did that transition into the Beertown role? Like, I know obviously it's a company that owns a bunch of different venues. So was that soon after that?
Yeah, it was soon-ish. I went back to school. Was planning to become a lawyer, finish my PhD in philosophy. Philosophy and beer go quite well together. And then so Beertown itself first opened up in 2012.
Okay.
We now have 10 locations. I joined. Oh my gosh, I think I joined. Back in 2013, 14, as Beertown was opening up Beertown London. I was very excited. Everyone in the community was so excited that Beertown was coming to London, Ontario. It was the third iteration of Beertown at the time. So that the company had opened Cambridge and Waterloo. And when I started there, I just wanted it on a part-time basis, but I soon saw that there was a lot of opportunity to kind of take the beer list to the next level and help focus on just beer education. And like Megan and my colleagues and the team had done a fantastic job up to that point. But I was kind of coming at it from a little bit of a different angle, being so obsessive as I was about what I was drinking and how we were going to be serving the beer. And so eventually Jody convinced me to come on board full time and help grow the brand and be that sort of like connection point between what we were trying to accomplish and working with the breweries and being a voice for the Ontario craft beer industry, because it's a huge privilege to serve some of the beers that we do, and it's always been my mandate to ensure that we do it right, and that can be hard to do as you're growing a concept like at a space like Beertown.
Amazing. Okay. So that's fantastic. So then the history of the Beertown brand in and of itself, like you said earlier, like it's a gateway destination for people to discover craft beer, which is highly underrated and undervalued in with something that we talk about here a lot, like gateway beers, and now this is gateway venue, which is a whole other ballpark. Are you able to speak to just sort of like how Beertown came about, like maybe what inspired it? Like, was, did someone identify that particular gap, or like, hey, we could actually introduce
Yeah.
people to beer? Yeah.
So the idea was conceived by our CEO, who's still our CEO, Jody Palavisky. He's an absolute dreamer, and a bit of an idealist. And I think had read an article about the modern beer bar in something like GQ magazine, but also had been spending a lot of time down in the States, going to spaces where they had more than 10 taps. And, those spaces were pouring more than just like 10 lagers on tap, and really thinking that there were spaces like that in Ontario. There wasn't anything like that, kind of in the suburbs. Like there were spaces that were sort of starved for craft beer. And, in 2012, when the first one opened, we were, what felt like the height of the craft beer renaissance in Ontario. You had this huge proliferation of breweries opening up, and it just made sense. Beertown is part of Charcoal Group. So there was already some capital there. It started with the Charcoal Steakhouse, which was family owned and operated, and opened in the 50s in Kitchener-Waterloo. And Jody joined to help manage that space, and then kind of pitched the guys on opening Beertown. And it's since then it's I think we can say it's been a success.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, we were talking off air earlier about the importance of things like that, both appealing to newer drinkers to make them feel comfortable. Because I can understand, while the three of us would probably not really feel uncomfortable or not welcomed, maybe in a beer space that maybe some might perceive to be pretentious or like overwhelming, and there's so many choices. What do all these words mean? I totally get it. This type of destination, whilst Nate, I think you haven't been yet, but neither have I, and I'm very excited to go. I'd love to hear sort of like what the differences are between, say, Beertown and another place that maybe could be a little overwhelming for somebody that's newer to craft. Like, what are those things that you guys have maybe crafted specifically to increase that welcoming and that kind of a, hey man, it's all good, like we got you.
100%. Yeah. I like to say that we aren't gatekeepers. I don't think there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens anymore, but actually there is. But for a while there were spaces and places where you would go in, and there was no kind of educational component to selecting a beer on a list. It was just like assumed that you would know what you wanted and what you were going to drink, and that was that.
Right.
And those spaces, I think, are really important. They don't necessarily have to be gatekeeping spaces, but so for Beertown, our biggest mandate is that while we are a gateway beer bar, we are also a lot of other things. Like, we have, I think, a fantastic culinary program.
Right.
Most of our food, actually all of our food, is like handmade, scratch made cuisine. Some of the beer towns don't even have freezers because it's important that we're doing things fresh. And our executive chef, Todd Claremont, has a long-standing history of being in the industry, kind of approaches, like any passionate chef, like culinary delight with, pizzazz and excitement and just an ethos to do things right. So we have kind of this sort of like, we have standard pub fare, but I would say it's a little bit elevated. And we go that extra mile, and we spend a lot of time training our chefs, paying our chefs well, and making sure that they can not only get our food out consistently well, do it quickly, but do it in a way that really does service to the way that menu's been curated. So yeah, good food, good eats. We also have like a great cocktail program. I recently partnered with Willibald a few years ago to come up with a kegged cocktail that we could serve to guests. So it's
That's
really that
awesome.
mentality that, yes, we want to serve great beer. Yes, we want to like convince you to try something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone. Yes, we want to support the Ontario craft beer scene, but we don't expect you to be there and just partake in that.
Right.
Ultimately, we want you to be comfortable. We have this sort of space for the people ethos, where we just want you to come in, be in that public house that's like a home, and partake with other community members and take your shoes off and just have a nice time.
Very
And
cool.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, that is the number one thing we teach our staff.
I love that.
That's really cool that you were able to partner with Willibald for that for that cocktail idea there, like with Willibald also having their spirits program there. That's kind of cool to be able to have that crossover. And you're saying too that you don't have to be partaking in that to enjoy the experience there, and I think that's something that's really key. As we were talking about, but like before, I have been to the Beertown in Burlington a few times because that's where my parents live, and I've brought them out to dinner there the last time my wife and I were in town, and neither of my parents are drinkers, so it was a case of I was certainly happy because I was able to have my pint of bone pine along with my fried chicken, and even though they're not drinkers, they absolutely loved the food there.
That's
um,
great.
and that's the food part of it, I think, is something that is often overlooked in the craft beer space. Another place that we know that kind of has that on lock is when we were talking to Counterpart a little while back.
Yes.
They're another spot in the brewery themselves that really have their culinary game down. And the way you were describing that reminded me of that in the same way, with that focus on on the culinary experience. Like it definitely has a big impact in terms of the the breadth of clientele that you can have through your doors in that case.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. And first and foremost, we are a restaurant. Like
Right.
we do sell more food than we do beer, so it only makes sense that if we're gonna try to do beer right, we're absolutely gonna try to do food right.
Mm.
We also like have a really great kids program, and I don't know, like as I'm getting older, and seeing some people that are, still in the scene, still kicking around, they're having kids. Like it's nice to be able to go somewhere. We have a kids root beer standard that I train all the staff on, where you can get all 4 root beers and you get a little sampler paddle with it, and it comes
Oh,
out in a
that's
little
sick.
collective arts like bucket, and so 3 kids can enjoy a sampler
Oh,
paddle
that's
of root
awesome.
beers, while
That is
mom and
so
dad
smart.
have the 4-way paddle of a bunch of IPAs.
I love
Yeah,
that.
it's creating a space that isn't daunting, and just appeals to what's going to make you happy. And if along the way we can get you to drink beer, then even better.
That is so cool. I mean and that's probably even coming back to my last question about what made it different. That's what makes it different. That's what makes it gateway. It makes it welcoming and appealing to all different demographics, where it's not just a bunch of 20 somethings with tattoos and stuff, like listening to loud music or whatever. Like that's super dope. And the craft cocktail, like I was saying in the intro, that I just came back from the States after 5 weeks, and one thing I noticed after not really traveling much for the last 3 years, at least outside of Canada, was the breweries in the States tended to always have multiple other options for people at all times, including, like, we just say the Vale in Richmond. They just opened, they opened the week before, went to their brand new tap room. It's massive, and they had like, I think it was 4 different cocktails on draft. Then they had like 4 different wines on draft as well. So like if you're bringing, and it sounds like I'm saying this to say that clearly Beertown is doing a very, very similar thing, where you're bringing your non-beer friends. So say if the three of us were like, yeah, let's go to Beertown, you're going to bring a couple of our non-beer drinking friends. Well, they're not going to feel kind of like, oh, I'm going to this beer bar, let me just get some Perrier or whatever. Like, they can feel a part of it because they can get this cool pour of this fun cocktail and like these thoughtful drinks that genuinely appeal to them, that don't make them feel like the odd one out, which I think is really important. That you know, breweries need to kind of be almost more like beverage companies these days, and it sounds like you guys are already doing that on top of the restaurant side as well, which is amazing.
100%. And that, like, I guess goes back to my gatekeeping comment, which I don't think is the right word, but it's just to say, like, if you ask for something, we're going to try and make it happen. You know, and we even have, like, we call it, it's kind of silly, but we call it the moment of truth, the MOT. We train our team on it. If a guest comes in and they you know, want a pomegranate juice and it's slow, a manager will run over to, you know, the grocery store and grab some pomegranate juice. So really the idea is that we're going above and beyond to make that experience comfortable, welcoming, and what you want when you're going to spend money.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
This is so cool. Where does all of the ideas for these fun things, like the moment of truth, like the kids root beer paddle, all of these things, like how does that sort of, like, is there like a process that the team goes through to sort of come up with like you know, how can we make this an incredible experience for people that make them want to come back, and maybe the next time they may be more inclined to try beer or something like that? Like, is there, or is it just kind of in the blood as such?
It is a synthesis of so many creative, amazing minds with different skill sets, and it's an evolution, right? Like, we have been around since, you know, 2012, changing the beer list, curating the Beertown experience. Like, we've been lucky to be able to open more restaurants, see how guests respond in different regions. You know, like, what we sell at Beertown Cambridge, the beer mix there, or the beverage sale mix there is very different from Beertown Newmarket sales mix, where we most recently opened in East Gillenbury. So yeah, there kind of is a process. Obviously, we don't just throw things at the wall and have them stick. You know, we think things out as we've grown. Especially, it's important that if we're going to try something new, that everyone's well trained on it, everyone understands what's going on, and that it's not just this half-baked concept that the management teams in each space don't feel comfortable executing. So there's like a lot of kind of operational work that goes into just not merely coming up with the idea, but making sure that we execute it properly. But for the ideas themselves, sometimes it's a bartender behind the bar who is like, yo, Jen, haven't seen you in a month because, you know, you've been at the other beer towns, but you know, a guest asked us X the other day, what do you think about this? Or we'd really like to take this out. And you know, then I chat with my colleagues, and if it makes sense, we make it happen. So then, yeah, we're big, but it's still a small and nimble team, and most of the creative thinkers within the Beertown brand are at the restaurants. Like, you know,
like
I'm still there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Actually on the floor, getting amongst it.
Exactly.
It's important.
Exactly.
I've worked at restaurants in the past, so I see the value there.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool to hear that, you know, like because you can hear lots of stories like of people who work at chain restaurants and kind of how it's very corporate driven, but that doesn't sound like that's really the case here. It sounds like the employees really have the ability to influence the the experience, and it sounds like the owners will hear what what the staff on the ground are willing to offer to kind of make the Beertown experience a bit better. Is that kind of the atmosphere?
I would say so, for sure. You know, even to this day, like, our CEO, opening day, he's standing on Drink Expo with me. You know, we're seeing what goes out. I'm behind the bar with the bar team. We're still actually changing up our training for this last restaurant open. I realized there's kind of a gap in in terms of the knowledge sets around draft beer maintenance, especially like or draft beer troubleshooting. As we're growing, I'm finding that it's just too hard for me to do that all myself, right? I really need to empower our bartenders. And it's on like trickier things, you know, say we get like a really beautiful saison that's, you know, it's been keg conditioned and so we got to up the PSI. We have different regulators on all our lines and so the point being that you know, we're still kind of adapting and evolving and trying to really listen to our team members to figure out how to kind of make the best possible experience for our guests. Yeah.
Fire. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
On that note, is it time for beer two?
I think so.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, yes. So, Jen, another OG, another flagship.
OG. Another flagship. So I guess I'll introduce this if you're okay with that.
Oh, we would love that. Please.
Awesome. So the next beer we have in our lineup tonight is Bone Tree, which is brewed by Third Moon Brewery up in Milton, Ontario. This, I would say, don't want to speak for the Third Moon, don't want to speak for Chris and Bebo too much, but I would say it's their flagship IPA.
Oh, I think it is, yes.
Yeah,
I think
New
they
England
would say
IPA.
it is.
Yeah, it's and importantly, we serve it at all of the beer towns, and it was definitely a little bit of a passion project for me, and I would say for the boys at Third Moon to be able to make this happen, because you know there's definitely logistical challenges with you know, the size and scope of their space and what we were asking them to do and being able to have this constantly available for us at 10 Beertown locations.
I mean, look, that's a lot, but when I saw this, I just thought my first thought, because I've known Bieber since before Third Moon, not super well, but I've known him for a while, and I know the struggle that they've been through. They opened in, you know, it's their anniversary this week. They opened in, you know, 2020. And when I saw that, I was like, that is the coolest shit I've ever seen. That they've got their flagship beer at all locations of a multi-location craft beer bar. And I was like, if I was owning a brewery, like that would be the dream situation. So maybe whilst it could have caused some short-term logistical stress, obviously that's what they're in business for. And you know, it's amazing. It's so cool.
Yeah, I don't think I could have put it better myself. I also think the thing about Bebo and Chris and the team there is like they really do believe in spaces that like they're okay to have their beer pouring alongside, you know, some American adjunct lager made by a big brewer. Like, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but the point is that they really just love beer. They love when people drink good beer. They aren't afraid to kind of push the boundaries in terms of like, you know, the beers that they're producing, and they kind of just do their thing. And when I approached them and they sort of approached me, I was nervous. I was like, like I was so obsessed with Third Moon, and you know, as you said, they opened up during the pandemic, so it was just like retail sales. You know, you're driving to the brewery, you're picking things up, and you know, I didn't know what they were going to think of potentially having this on tap at Beertown, and they were all for it.
That's a really fair. As much as it's more like, oh, like they're such cool guys, like it's not even a problem, but it's a fair thing, particularly with Third Moon being having the level of hype that they have. Mm-hmm. You know, that you know, maybe they aren't able to or not interested or not able to keep up or whatever it might be. But yeah, they are definitely super humble dudes, and yeah, it's pretty exceptional.
Super humble, and I think you're right. For many breweries, it would be a dream to have your beer listed in a multi unit concept. But as I said, like you know, it does change, I think, the way you have to think about your production schedules. You know, at the time they were brewing Bone Tree pretty consistently, which is uh, why we kind of had this approach of being able to serve it. But like I'm pretty sure they're brewing more of it now because we are buying so much of it,
That
and
could have
that
even
does
been why.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that does change the way that they have to think about what's in tank, when it's in tank, what else they're brewing. Things as simple as like the number of empty kegs that we have from them sitting at any given time, like and
That's a good point.
that's something that I think about a lot because we have a whole standard around how to get empties back to breweries, how to deal with keg deposits, especially with our rotational program. But yeah, I think like it's just to say that this was like it took a while to make it happen, and they were just so great to work with in terms of figuring out those logistical challenges. And yeah, I just want to give a nod to them on
That's
that.
amazing. Well,
Yeah.
on that note,
That's not at all surprising, and like it's really good to hear that they're able to have a partnership like this, and like knowing them, like we love to see something like something like this working for them, where where they've got a beer that's showing up in a like in a 10 location like chain like that, that they're able to that they're able to meet that demand, and also like that you guys are selling so much of this that's like that was able to sustain it. And it's a fantastic beer at that. So with that, we should probably take a sip.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
please. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, it's gorgeous. You know what? I just realized I've actually never had this because I checked it. I logged on Untapped. I only have ever had the anniversary versions, like the last two, and I just
How is
picked up
that
the third.
possible that you've never had this one?
I think because I just
What?
didn't realize. I was like, why does it say 0 check-ins? I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And I think because I looked at it and I just got the Bone 3 today, and then I had the
Yep.
first and second anniversary one, and then they had a double dry hopped version,
Yep.
and I had just never had the OG, and it's spectacular.
My
Of course,
God.
I know,
great.
right? I'm sure it's like basically the same shit as like the other ones, but still, like technically haven't had this one, and I've heard someone said to me the other day when I was talking about this, they're like, oh, there's nothing like Bone Tree on draft, and I don't believe I've ever had it on draft at particularly at Beertown, which is my aim. God damn it, this summer now I'm close to everything. It's what's happening. I guess it's like you both obviously have done it. Is it much of a different experience? I mean, obviously draft is superior like more times than not. For this particular beer, would you both say that it's obviously it's gorgeous out of a can,
It,
but
it's gorgeous out of a can. I've had it so many times now, like it's like it like maybe slightly different, but even it like on their short draw system versus like when we're serving it at Beertown, like there's just too many variable factors there
great point.
for me to, I don't know, Nathan, maybe you can speak to this, for me to be able to discern why it's different. Like, is it just, because this beer actually ages surprisingly well for
Mm,
the style. So like we try to keep our inventory really tight. We keep these kegs in the fridge. They're not allowed to be on the floor. But
Very
like,
cool.
when did we tap it? When was like when did the beer come out? So yeah, but there is something about pouring it on draft, like
yeah,
pouring it,
definitely.
placing it on the
Money.
bar. It's just yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean, look, this is spectacular. I'm sorry, Nate. You talk about that.
No, no, there was no, I didn't really have much to add on that, like on that front, but just again, just to gush over how fantastic a beer this is. Like, I mean, so many breweries use Citra in like in so many different ways, and
Mhm.
but like there's a reason that so many breweries love it, and so many of our favorite like breweries love it so much. Like Badlands is crazy for it. Like Third Moon are obviously crazy for it. It's the backbone of Bone Tree and all of its like all of its variations, and like all of the different ways that they've used Citra. Um, Otherwise, it's just an incredibly versatile hop, and it's one that really creates a fantastic profile just on its own. And yeah, like this is just a beautiful beer.
impeccable.
On
God
like
damn it.
on can or on draft, it's awesome.
It's always amazing. Obviously, like for the listeners, as Nate's saying, this is an all Citra hop beer, so they just use Citra in it. I think when I was chatting with Chris, because I actually went and picked these cans up from the brewery since we just have it on tap at Beertown, and they were saying that their recent batch used Citra that they had selected from Yakima, which would make sense, but that they were finding that it was very, very much more tropical than the last time, and you don't get any of those catty or woody aromatics that you sometimes get with Citra. So
Yep.
that's it. That just makes it even more fun to drink.
Yeah,
Excuse my camera.
absolutely. I'm not getting any of the catty elements at all in this.
No.
Like what I'm getting is, like you were saying, all tropical fruit. There's a ton of like citrus rind like in this. Lots of grapefruit and orange peel. So it's getting bitterness from that. It's getting like a bit of like caramelized resinous sweetness, all of that going together, and
God,
it's gorgeous.
this is special. This is a truly special beer, man. This is
I'm
incredible.
so happy.
It's been a while since I've had it. It's like this is actually a real treat to come back to this because it's been a while.
Yeah, man.
Me too. I picked up a few other things from them, so I had some
Smart.
double bloodbath the other day, and yeah, and I
Oh,
guess
I've
I
got a
haven't
can of
had
that in the
bone
fridge.
cream. It's
Yes.
good. It's really good. But yeah, I haven't had bone tree in a while, and it's like sometimes I kind of get bored of our what we call our static beer list, which is just like our
Year rounders.
year rounders. But then coming back to them, like there's a reason that we continue to
Yeah.
pour the beers that we do. So
This is. I mean, we already know the Third Moon is like out of control, but like as far as haze is concerned, I mean, this is the benchmark, and for this to be your main flagship IPA, I mean, like, god damn, that is like, and to be, look at that Beertown logo, looking gorgeous right there.
Oh.
I was saving my glass for one of the collabs. Oof. It's just so cool, and I just think it's really like it's like you've kind of got the best of both worlds. What I really, really love, like I was saying, we really value gateway things here that the typical beer nerd probably doesn't think about. It's just that we try to think a little broadly and be like, okay, well, for this industry to grow, we need new people to get in on that, right? So a lot of gateway things, like you can go to different places, and the optimal situation is that there would be products for newer drinkers and then products for people like the three of us. And for this just to be like, oh, we'll just got Bone Tree on tap everywhere all the time. Like that is like, it's no small thing. And it's just such like elevated top tier, like craft beer in Canada. If not, like, 'cause I just came back from 5 weeks. I don't know if in the States, I don't know if I had anything that good, as good as this. Which really speaks to the quality of what we're doing up here. Like it is with that's what I learned, my number one thing, and it's not even any sort of knock to anything, obviously, but I really think the Canadian beer has elevated so much in the last few years that maybe people don't realize, and maybe we don't realize. It took me to leave to really understand, like, oh wow, like we're doing something very, very special. And for you guys to just be that forward thinking and thoughtful about it and introducing this level of quality product to newer people, obviously the people who are already into it already know what's up, so that's preaching to the choir. But like I just think that is it's almost like a ballsy move from a corporate sort of perspective, because it might not work sometimes, but
Oh, totally. Like I'm gonna say right now, I've served this to some guests that are like, what is this?
I didn't want a chicken soup. Yeah.
And that's not a knock to Third Moon. It's not a knock to the industry. It's not a knock to what this beer is. It was me not doing a great job at trying to navigate a tasting experience for a guest, right? It was just too much too soon. But we have a good lineup of IPAs. Like we pour this also alongside Collective Arts Life in the Clouds, right?
Another
Which is
fantastic flagship.
a fantastic flagship.
Arguably a
Also a
little more
hazy
gateway.
IPA, but more gateway,
Yes.
gateway.
So what was the second one? I talked over you. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So Life in the Clouds. We also pour outside jokes from town, not
Oh
at all 10
yeah,
locations,
phenomenal.
right? But that's also kind of in that haze craze category,
Hmm.
but still very, very different from what we have in front of us.
Yes.
And when we first decided to kind of partake in getting Third Moon on tap, at all of the locations, we actually did a release of Bone Twig,
Love that one.
which is great. It's more kind of like a hazy American pale ale, lower ABV, because I just wanted to
5,
do
I
a
think.
run of it to see how our servers and guests would respond to
Hmm.
Third Moon product, knowing that a lot of people in the building would have never had Third Moon before
Right.
and wouldn't
Right.
even really know what they're doing. Um, so yeah, and it sold like wildfire, and so I thought, yeah, we're just gonna go for it.
I
I
love it.
also want to do
Yeah.
something selfish,
That's not.
something that I'm gonna drink.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have
There you
to.
go.
You got to take these
Yeah.
risks.
Yeah, that's not surprising. Um, so talking about kind of the gateway environment, looking through some of the stuff that you sent us with the menus here. I'm wondering if you can talk us
Oh
through this
yeah.
strategy of the rotating pours,
Can we bust
because
open the menus?
you've got this lovely little list here of of the 10 rotating pours that you've got, and like just to mention that like a couple, there's like something newsworthy, an Ontario craft cider, something smooth, something spicy. Do you want to talk us through the thinking on that?
Oh, this is so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, 100%. Since Beertown's inception, Beertown has had like some rotational taps. But like I was saying, the beer scene in Ontario has been evolving. There's some really fantastic stuff happening right now. And so we've tried to sort of evolve with it, right? And evolve with the fact that the average beer drinker at Beertown, well, they don't always know what's going on. They know more than they did 10 years ago, for
Mm.
sure. The rotating taps are managed in house by each of my beverage managers, and that allows us to keep the inventory really tight, which is super, super important. But what we've done, or what I've done, is I've tried to create a little sandbox for them to play within, so that we don't end up with a tap list of 10 IPAs, with a beverage
Ah.
manager who may just have finished their Cicerone training, and they know stuff about beer, but they're not really in the scene, right? Because that's something that's like really hard to teach.
Mm.
And
That's
then
a
at
good
the
point.
same time, from a guest standpoint, which is, Nathan, probably what you're more interested in, I wanted a way to like be able to actually have the rotational taps like printed on the menu, so that when you open the list and you see the static pours, which obviously have some great beers on it, you also are able to see that like we also have a lineup of 10 really, really great beers, and if you don't recognize them on our chalkboards or Untapped, you at least kind of understand what line number 2 is going to be about. Okay, you want a cider, you want something gluten free, check out line number 2. You want something that
Mm.
celebrates hops, check out line number 7. And so, yeah, that was sort of the thinking around it, to be able to like take something like the idea of rotational taps that beer geeks understand, and make it palatable to people who don't know what that means.
That is so
I don't know.
I
cool.
love that.
So
Yeah,
every restaurant, every Beertown location would probably have different 1 to 10 in these different sort of categories at any
exactly.
given time, and it's up to
At
the
any
individual curator.
Yes. Now, with that being said, as we've grown, I've had to create kind of a list of approved breweries. So they have to select from a list of already pre-chosen breweries, and
Okay.
that's simply to ensure that the onboarding processes happen there. Like, just as much as like, just, not every brewery is doing the exact same thing, has the same philosophy, understands what we're doing. And by the same token, it's a privilege to pour the beer that we do. And so I want to make sure that I'm chatting with the brewery about it. They understand how we're going to deal with keg empties and deposits. They understand, how we deal with keg storage, if a keg's going to be on the floor or not on the floor, which is also a contentious thing. So we have a list that the beverage managers get to choose from, but then they get to just go wild.
Go nuts. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like this before. It's fascinating. And then the second part of this is the neighborhood pause.
Yeah.
Do you want to maybe touch on that a little?
Yeah. So those as we've grown, like menus cost a lot of money. We have to print them quite regularly, and so we wanted a way to just be able to support the breweries in our own backyard, but also give them some leniency to be able to change up those tap listings more often, knowing that some of those breweries are so small that they might not have a lot of beers in their core portfolio. Or they might say, oh, we're really excited about, this West Coast that we just did, but then in 6 months from now go, you know what, it's not performing well in the tap room. Can we switch to something else? And so the neighborhood pours are essentially, they're different for each beer town. There's 3 of them at each beer town. And then we have our collaboration brew, which we're going to try in a little bit. And so they're printed on a different section of the menu, which is like our neighborhood pours and rotational bottle lists that we can swap it more often. So yeah. And the one you have there, I don't know which one I gave you, whatever. Oh, it was at Beertown Burlington. So that's Beertown Burlington's list right now, which is kind of in flux.
So just to maybe give people a bit of a context there, like the neighborhood pours that you have on tap, which that would actually make sense because you have Merit rotational series. You have Bronin, High Road, who actually had the founder of them on the podcast because they also founded Harmon's craft.
They did.
Which is phenomenal to hear. I didn't know this. And then Steve, the other owner, was the founder of Mill Street, which blew my mind. Ephus from Left Field. And then, as you mentioned, the collaboration series, of course, which we're going to get to shortly. So that is super fun. So basically, it's just like 3 beers, essentially, that are from that local neighborhood. So like in the New Market location, you'd probably have Market Brewery, maybe George on Main and something like that. So something sort of around the corner to keep it sort of local, and maybe people might feel a little connection or learn something about their local. Like, oh, wow, I didn't know about... that this brewery was down the street type of thing.
100%. Like, so in case in point, when we first opened up Burlington was like the first attempt at doing a 41 tap draft list. The locations prior to that only had 30 taps. And so we had an opportunity to partner with more local breweries, and Fairweather was opening up at the time. There wasn't a lot happening in Burlington. So, I reached out to Dan and the team there, and they at the time didn't produce coasters. We do use coasters at Beertown. Guests love it. I always tell every brewery that the nice thing is that, like, if someone posts on Untapped, your beer is always going to be in the right glass. But so he made coasters for us, and I said, put your address on the back, and we'll just send people your way. And I like to think that we sent a lot of people their way.
That's so cool. It's so thoughtful.
I love that.
That's what I'm learning right now, is that every single step of the way, everything is very thoughtful, very intentional, which is just so dope. And it just needs to be that way because that's really what beer is. But I love this so much. The second part of this neighborhood pause here is a rotational bottle list. So this is sort of just like you mentioned before, the double bloodbath is on here from Third Moon, and you got an exceptional list. You got the Sklepnik from Godspeed in the Pitchline barrels, which is one of my favorite beers of the year. Vim and Vigor, one of the greatest beers in Canadian history. All the Long Cloud, Badlands, and Slake. Each Beast of God, phenomenal. What else we got? Oh, Fine Balance, Gelato Sour, love Fine Balance. Rorschach, the Haterade, which is a ton of fun. And even some like Belgian stuff, some Tilken and stuff. I mean, this is great. So this is kind of more of like a break it down, just like maybe like a, hey, we got like maybe a case of this stuff.
Yeah,
of each? And
it's a rotating list. So because we can swap out that menu more often, it just allows us to bring in like more one-offs and like cans that I might be trying to seek out for myself, or like a friend in the beer community may be doing the same, without having to worry about it being a consistent beer that's going to be produced for a long period of time, right?
gotcha.
And during the pandemic,
This is great.
like many breweries and other bars, we did have to shift and think about doing retail, right? And we used to have guests now that really do treat us like a bottle shop. It's obviously not our primary, means of business, but I love to encourage it. We try to price the beers low for the bottle shop component, because for us, it's just really a way to get more people drinking fun beers, to encourage responsible service, and to rotate our inventory. And
Mm.
so the rotational bottle list changes, I'd say, like every 2 months.
Okay.
And when we run out of something, we just stamp it out with a little stamp that says better luck next time. So you can kind of see, like, what's there. And we just bring in like 1 to 2 cases of the product. Sometimes more if the restaurant, like Beertown Berry, sells a lot of takeout. So we bring in more.
Gotcha. That's sick.
Yeah.
I love that. I know. I was as you were saying that. I noticed. Yeah, you've got the in-house price as well as the to-go
Yeah.
price
Yeah.
as well, which is super dope. This is
Yeah,
super
that's
fun.
really
And
smart.
yeah,
I never would have thought of that as as part of a strategy of like of inventory rotation, but like that's really deliberate and very and very clever. And like you were saying, these are very reasonably priced, like for to
oh
go.
yeah,
Like a can of each beast to God on like under $10. That's that's not that's not bad at all. Like Haterade for like for $5, those are very
yeah.
reasonable prices.
Yeah.
People are used to paying that. Like one of my favorite things about moving to Ontario is that we have now the indie bottle shops that I guess were everywhere in Quebec,
Mhm.
but now we're able to do that. Like my favorite cafe Durand around the corner here has the best fridge, in the city, and it's so dope because it's like well, you could buy a 4-pack from the brewery, or you can pay maybe a premium of $1 or something or so a can to be able to just buy one of them, but you're directly supporting that brewery plus also supporting the shop, so it's like a double banger right there. And it's sick. And that's the exact same concept here, where people can come to the restaurant and maybe you had a pour of something and you're like, you know what, let me get a couple cans to go of that. It's glorious. I think
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
it's worked well for us. Like, I know me here, I'm in Kitchener. I love going to Sidewalk Beer Shop,
Mm.
at Princess
Shouts to
Cafe.
Mark.
Like, they do an amazing job there. There is a beer town right up the street, but like what he's doing just helps us sell more takeout beer. It's
Gotcha.
and and like really at the end of the day, most of our spaces are not in downtown spaces, which is where I find a lot of the bottle shops are, right? It makes sense
That's
that they are,
very true.
right?
That's very true.
And so we're in the burbs, and there's not a lot of places to get, some good one-offs, and so it's just like kind of a hole in the market that we're looking to fill, and also encourage people to try new stuff. Someone comes in, they've never had Third Moon beer before, they try Bone Tree. I want to send them home with some double bloodbath or something else if they're not going to get a chance to go up to Milton to pick up product themselves.
Mm.
Yep.
It's just so cool. And I feel like, is that like a thing at all? Can all restaurants do that now? Excuse my ignorance on the legalities.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so
Oh,
everywhere can do it if they want to.
they can. There are rules around it, some of which make sense, some of which don't. But
Standard bureaucracy.
that's standard bureaucracy and alcohol legislation for you in Ontario. But that was one of the really strange, wonky things about the pandemic, was
Mm,
this erasure of the monopoly of the LCBO. Like, sure, they still have a huge monopoly, but now any bar, as long as you have a liquor license, can sell booze to go. Like,
gotcha.
mind blown. Never thought I'd see the day.
Honestly, from when this happened, I was still in Montreal, and I was shocked that there wasn't as much sort of like talk about it. I expected to see podcasts and think pieces and all this stuff. Like people weren't like, I felt the same way. The way you reacted then, that's how I felt, and I wasn't even living here. I was like, this is the coolest shit ever. Like, every single time in Ontario, I either have to go to the brewery. And LCBO, I tended to not really enjoy as much. They didn't always have the freshest inventory. They didn't have the newest releases because of the bureaucracy of it, which is completely fair. But now any cafe, whatever, restaurant, bar is able to sort of supplement their income with doing this. And people aren't really talking about it as much. Or people could just rent an empty storefront and just be like, all right, holler at a bunch of breweries, order some cases, boom, 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 get some chips to go because of the stupid food law thing.
Food requirement, yeah.
And then boom, it's gone. It's just like it's just so cool, and it's so smart, and it's allowing like businesses to thrive at a time when so many went under. So it's fun because it helps not only Beertown, for example, that can sell something to go, but it also helps that brewery, you know, with the, like you were saying, the, you know, just the I guess the knowledge of just their existence, and be like, hey, this exists. This is really great product. This is local Canadian Ontario product that, you know, are just some folks in your community starting this business that you want to support. And I love it. I love it so much. This is just so super cool.
I'm still shocked at how many guests come in and have no clue that breweries sell beer online and can ship it to your house.
Really?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
oh yeah, and so then again, this us being able to sell beer to go is like, it's like part of that, because as you know, you said it's a good I think it's an okay list, like, but we limit the number of SKUs, right? Like, there's only like 10 SKUs on that list. So
Yeah.
you know, anytime I'm building a 6-pack or 4-pack for somebody, it's like, you really like this stuff, well, this is what we have from this brewery, but like, go on their website, like, here it is, like, check
Grab some
out
more.
what you can grab and get it shipped to your house. And they're like, what, that's a thing? And I'm like,
wow. So maybe it's just like
Yeah.
a beer nerd thing, like a community thing where we all know, but the average maybe casual drinker isn't aware of that, which is wow, because you can't do it in Quebec, and it always used to drive me nuts. And then seeing everybody here.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, it seems obvious to like to us all the time. Like, you know, people who are actively in the scene and follow every brewery in Ontario and the province, and who, you know, see the updates to like, you know, with the link to the store, or, you know, you're seeing like their shipping deals that like that come up and whatnot. It's like it seems like second nature to us, but knowing that not everyone who comes into who comes into Beertown, that like is necessarily that level of beer nerd. It's not like, you know, when you think about when you think about it, it's not that surprising that they're like, you know, that some people like might not know about it. So like it's that's cool to hear that you can blow some minds that like sometimes, and like you guys are really doing a service to the breweries by turning that
facts.
information on to people who might not otherwise know.
So true.
I hope that we are. I mean, I like to think that we are. You know, another um, thing that we really battled with was growlers,
Mm.
Mm,
because
Okay.
because I was nervous about doing them when we were looking for like ways to generate income when we were shut down, right? But like, we were in this position where I got the call that as of January 1st, it was going to be approved, right? Because originally the legislation just said you could sell beer to go, but it had to be like a closed container, right? So growlers were not part of the original legislative changes. Growler, like, and I think we had like 2 weeks to put it together. And it's this idea that, you know, I can control our team. We can put so many hours into controlling how we're serving the beer in house and making sure that it's done right. But the moment it leaves the restaurant, I can't control that.
I
You
get
know,
it. I
and
totally get it.
a growler's not like, a growler is not shelf stable,
No.
right? So yeah, it's been fascinating and exciting, and now we're selling growlers to go.
I love it. I mean, look, that's
there you
like
go.
any way you can bring in income. I feel like it's completely fair game, and I guess part of that was like, hey, so you probably got 48 hours to drink this from blah blah blah, like giving him the sort of rundown. Growlers have always been a contentious issue I found with breweries. Like, some of them love it. I know some friends who love it, and I know a lot of breweries are the complete opposite because of what you just said, that they can't trust that the consumer is going to handle that beer how it's supposed to be. And if they forget about the growl in the back of the fridge for a month and they open it, it's going to taste like hot garbage. It's going to negatively affect their brand when it's consumer sort of side things. But
the ones that always stressed me out were the and like this isn't really much of a thing anymore, but it was until fairly recently, was the ones who would fill customers' growlers not knowing how that how the customer had necessarily cleaned them, and and everything, just kind of taking a growler that the customers brought in, filling it right from the tap and giving it back to them. That always stressed me out.
Yeah, and with our program, we don't accept outside growlers. We just can't.
I figured.
We just
I
can't.
figured.
So it has to be a Beertown growler. Now, we do have an exchange program, but the way it works is you buy your glass jug for $4.99. We fill it up. You take it home, and then you bring it back. We take the dirty one. We set it aside because it's going to take us like 24 hours to clean it properly and air dry it.
Yeah.
And then we're grabbing a fresh one and filling it and giving them that back. Right. So
that's the way to do it. I would always trust that that's going to get it cleaned better than I can in my kitchen sink.
If anything, I worked at the beer store in like 2004, and the things that I saw in the empties, oh my goodness, it was. I'm seeing like Coronas brought back with that much beer left and cigarettes floating in it, bringing it back as an empty. I wash my empties and bring them back, and the people, it was disgusting. So you can only imagine that, some of the state of some of these growlers. So I think $4.99 is an extraordinarily reasonable entry point to be like, cool, I've guaranteed a clean, fresh growler every single time I get something to go from Beertown.
Yeah,
I think that's very
and
fair.
it's only $4.99 for like the glass jug. Once you bring it back, we don't charge you the $4.99.
Yeah, of course, because you're trading it out, right? It's the one.
Yeah,
time.
you just pay for the beer. So
eventually, you got maybe a nice piece for the shelf. Worst case, once you finish, if you're not into growlers anymore. So
totally,
it's win-win.
Totally.
I've got a barn cat growler on my on the back of my kitchen sink with a plant in it.
Oh yeah, they work the best. Growlers are sick for that. Yeah, we put a bunch of like dried flowers and stuff in different growlers. They're wicked.
Yeah, I'm currently using 2 growlers as a vase. I think like a willow bulb one, and I don't even know where the other one's from.
They're kind of perfect for that, right? See?
Yeah,
they're valuable. I was trying to come up with a funny segue, but I can't. But next beer.
Yes.
Collaboration Nation time.
Let's go.
Collaboration Nation time. I'm so excited. Okay.
Talk to us, Jen. What are we doing?
Do you want me to tell you about what Collaboration Nation is first? Should we just talk about the beer first? What are we thinking?
I think we should talk about what it is for. Actually, no, let's talk about the beer first so we can get that going, and then we can talk about it. But which one are we going to rock? Excuse my forgetfulness.
So we're going to rock, I think we're going to rock Bone Pine first.
Beautiful.
And we're going to see how it tastes, because I will say, I know, Nathan, you said you had it pretty recently, but we have stopped selling it at Beertown because we've sold out of it, which is great. But this was also originally conceived of in November. And I think that this one, I have to check.
November 15th.
Was canned November 15th. Nathan, now that I'm thinking about it, the batch you would have had recently at Beertown was actually the second time we brewed it.
Okay.
So it would have been, this is the first, because we didn't I don't know that we canned it the second time round. Maybe Sam did a small run of cans. Yeah.
Oh, this is Sawdust side.
This is Sawdust side. Yes.
Okay.
So this is called Bone Pine, and it was brewed at Sawdust City. And it is part 1 of a 2-part collab series between Sawdust City, Third Moon Brewery, Beertown, and maybe most importantly, 2 beer geeks in the Kitchener-Waterloo region, Terry and Emma. And I can talk
Wow.
about them in a little bit. They actually messaged me tonight because they're off to Bruges and Brussels on Sunday
Hell
to
Oh
yeah.
go drink some
wow,
good beer. Yeah.
nice.
So this beer is a more kind of on the side of a New England IPA. And I'm going to pour it for myself. And what it is it has the malt body of Bone Tree, which we just had, right? So you get the nice oats and barley there. You get a lot of haze. But then it has the hops, the hop profile of Lone Pine,
Gotcha. Okay.
which would be Summit, Simcoe, Columbus, and Chinook.
Okay. Sick. I knew it was something along those lines where they would combine the malt and the hops of the different ones, but I wasn't sure how that would look. That's super cool.
Yeah. And so unlike some of our other collabs, obviously like um we played less of a part in recipe creation on this one because we already knew we were going to do one with the malt body of the one beer and one with the malt body of the other beer and swap out the hops, right? So it's
Right,
just
right, right.
taking two fantastic flagship IPAs, merging them, and then sort of intentionally brewing, the haze bomb at Sawdust City because they're so well known for their West Coasts, and then brewing a West Coast at Third Moon, which we'll have in a bit,
Right.
because they're so well known for their East Coasts.
Do you know what's interesting? I found that like our first ever collab was with Sawdust in 2018, the Get It In Ya, which was this little guy right here that we did. And this was their first time they ever did a double IPA, if I'm not mistaken, or at least like a proper, real. No, it was the largest hop injection they'd ever done. So this is actually still full. This can. I wonder what it tastes like right now. The watching them sort of change over the years and see how they sort of like. I really feel like Sawdust, whilst what you said is completely accurate, the Sawdust West Coast because of like Sam's origins and stuff is just exceptional. I don't want to discount their haze like binary system and
100%.
everyday magic. I just
Everyday magic,
Jason.
yes.
insane. It's like they cracked the code on haze, and it was just so sick to watch. So like I'm super impressed with everything the Sawdust have done with New England IPAs. I feel like maybe I don't know if they get enough props for what they've been able to do there, but it's just so good. I mean, obviously their West Coast is sort of insane, but yeah, definitely don't want to underrepresent their. My God, look at that head for a 6-month-old beer. Look at that. Woo,
Yeah, that's great.
Very
that's
good.
crazy.
Nice
Yeah.
little foam
Yeah,
chapeau.
Oh, it smells
Sawdust are
great.
definitely one of like it's one of those ones that
Whoa.
well, while they might not be the first one that most people talk about if you're talking about hype haze in Ontario, they're definitely one of those ones everyone who's in the beer scene in Ontario knows and loves. Like you're not going to find anyone who doesn't know and love Sawdust, and all of
No.
the beers that we just mentioned would certainly be on their list. Like certainly Lone Pine in the West Coast category would be undeniable, but on the haze side, like Juicin was one of the forerunners in Ontario for that, no question. Everyday Magic, for my money, is the one where like Cee was saying, where they really cracked the code on that, and like the binary systems on the double category, there's some hectic ones in there, but they're so good though.
Yeah.
They really are. And yeah, and that too is like when we decided to do this, like we had the utmost confidence, like myself, Terry and Emma, and Third Moon, that like we were like Sawdust, like we all went up there. But truly, what is a collaboration day? Like you go up there, the other brewery comes up, you've thought of the recipe in advance, but it's like the brewers on the ground doing a lot of the work that know
Oh
the
yeah,
system,
you just sit around and
right?
drink.
Like, yeah,
It's good
yeah.
times. Yeah.
You sit around and drink. In our case, we teach our staff about beer. We get them excited about Sawdust. We add some hops
Oh yeah, you have to take the photo adding the hops.
Yeah, you
That's
dump
the,
the bags
Yeah.
in.
that's
Take,
the money
take some
shot.
pics of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, we just
we
brewed a
removed
beer.
some spent grain, but in Sawdust case, like it's like almost automated, so you know. Um, but there was like no doubt in our minds that they were going to brew an amazing New England style IPA.
I
So
love it. Well,
Yeah.
on that note, may we cheers. Cheers, y'all.
cheers.
Cheers.
Honestly, a 6-month IPA has absolutely no business being this good.
Yeah, it's I'm
It's
I'd be a
very
little
good.
worried normally. I don't even like anything after a month, and this is like,
I was scared to send it. I was scared to send it to you guys because I and it took me a while to find cans. Like that was a it's like, but I just thought, we can try it. We can be cognizant of the fact that it's 6 months old. We're no longer selling it. And it's just part of the story. And it was kind of how this whole 2-part collaboration came together. So I thought, we had to at least try it and
I think it
celebrate
was
the
key.
can art too, which is
Yes.
Oh yeah.
designed
Beautiful.
by Cindy Perry, our director of marketing, but she's also, a really cool artist on the side. She's got a social handle, Ms. Misery, and we kind of just let her to go to town on both the can labels for these.
Go to
So,
Beertown, maybe,
go to Beertown.
which you should do.
I'm really glad you did throw this one in.
Same.
Because yeah, like it's really nice to just kind of complete the set of this
Yeah.
like of the collabs of these two beers, and having having had it already twice on on tap, both at Sawdust and and at Beertown, and having loved it both times. This is, despite its age, still quite good. The only thing that I think is different since when I had it fresh is, in both cases when I had it fresh, it was quite dank.
Yeah.
Both in aroma and and on the palate. Like it definitely even had kind of the dank weed kind of
Weed
aroma
kind.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like and and also just kind of that like woof of Kush as you were kind of taking a sip too, which I absolutely love. I love a dank IPA.
All right, big
That
smoke
has
dog.
that has certainly faded at this point, I think. But like, my God, that was good on tap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you put it really well, and like, and again, it was so fun to serve it alongside Lone Pine and see how the same hops really played differently with the beer based on when they were being added, and how much was being used, and it was a really cool educational experience for my beverage managers as well to like try and we did a hop rub at the brewery, to try
Ooh,
and kind
sick.
of explain to them
Oh, nice.
how it was going to taste, and then to actually taste it on tap and get that dankness and that like wet foresty, like oh, it's really really nice, and it
That's
sort
so
of
sick.
lost that a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's still holding up quite well.
That's to be expected, really. It's still very enjoyable.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I seen on Untapped people checking into it like less than a week ago and rating it high.
That's great. Well, also with this release, Sawdust had quite a few bottle shops reaching out to ask if they could buy it. And Sam, because he's Sam, reached out to me and he's like, I didn't think about this. Like, can we sell it? Like, do you guys want it to be exclusive? And I was like, no, 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 sell it to the bottle shops. Like that, we're all in the business of trying to get more people to drink really great beer. So yeah, maybe there's a few places still selling it.
Interesting. I mean, look, it also gets the Beertown name out because it's on the can.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like in your best interest for more people to see this beer, which I love. You mentioned earlier about the collaboration nation. Maybe we should talk about that as well and what that's about, because the can touches on it here.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, totally. So, as we've grown, a lot of people have asked us, why we don't brew our own beer or why we don't brew beer, right?
Okay.
Like I don't know why. Maybe it's because we're called Beertown. We've actually even had people come into Beertown and try and return empties, which is just hilarious. Like more than once. But I digress. The point is, we get that question all the time.
People are funny, man.
And I'm like,
oh my god,
we're not a brewery. We have no interest in being a brewery. We're not experts like in brewing beer. We are experts in hospitality, in making people feel special, in serving them great food. You know, and part of that, I will say, is I have personally accepted empties. You know,
Okay.
in one instance, bless her heart, she must have been like 90 years old, and she shuffled up and handed them to me, and I just got money from my wallet and gave it to her and took the empties. And
oh, you're a sweetheart.
yeah, because we can return them, and then I actually paid myself back because I realized, I'll just put these empties into our beer store empties bin, and then
great, bang, take
please,
what you
there you
paid.
Please don't show up with empties.
No, please don't show up to Beertown with empties, guys. Beertown is a restaurant and a bar.
We're a restaurant.
You go to the
we're a restaurant and a bar. And the point is we're not a brewery. So no, we're not going to just make a beer and slap our name on it and not say anything about the brewery or where it was brewed or do a contract brew. You know, and so what is Collaboration Nation? It's about being able to partner with breweries. It's about the beer community. It's about the friendships we've forged, and acknowledging really the fine folks in the province that continue to push the boundaries and brew great beer. And it's an opportunity, I spoke about the educational element earlier, to take key team members, hit the road, and go and do a collab. And that starts from talking to the brewery about, you know, what kind of style we're thinking of brewing, talking about recipe development a little bit, but putting our faith in the team there to come up with something that's going to really make sense and sell well at Beertown, but also speak to the brewery and their brand, and then showcase those brewery spaces and how beer is brewed to my team, and do it in a way that really pays homage and respect and service to the brewery itself, right? Like, yeah, our Beertown label is on here, but like, you know, so is Third Moon and Sawdust City, and they, you know, they were the ones that put all the work into this, and we're just really lucky to be able to be a part of it.
So cool. It's just so thoughtful. And this is just, I was just thinking as you were saying, just every single part of this conversation and what we're doing tonight is just so thoughtful, and this just feels on brand for what you're doing. I love that a lot. How many collabs have you guys done? Is it the two?
Oh yeah. No, we've done okay, I'll list a few.
Please.
So we did Double Town with Town Brewery, because it's Beertown and Town.
Love you,
Double
That's
IPA.
great.
Yeah. We also did another collab with Town Brewery, which was called Moments of Truth, which goes back to what I was chatting about earlier. I know you recently spoke with Justin from Stormstade. We did a collab with Justin, the Soleil Sorbet Kettle Sour, which is basically a fruited kettle sour, but without lactose, because a lot of his kettle sours are with lactose. And so we wanted to do one that I think we put maltodextrin in it instead, but we wanted to do one that didn't have lactose because we have a big vegan crowd at Beertown. We've collaborated with Great Lakes. We did a American Pale Ale with Sabro hops, when Sabro hops were like a little, people were using them the year before last. I don't know, before the pandemic.
I think they're still fire.
Yeah. And we did another collab with Sawdust. It was a wet hop collab, so we went and picked
that's
hops
nice
at VQH Farms, which was great for the staff. So Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so I go wild for yeah.
The wet hop king.
See is laughing because
Oh no.
because I
Nobody
always
loves
go
wet hop.
nuts for wet hop beers like every single fall, and
That
Sawdust
makes me laugh so much.
have
It's
made some
amazing.
of my absolute favorites.
Yeah.
Like Harvest of Eden, I would kill for that beer, and I keep spamming them on social media every fall. Like, could you please brew Harvest of Eden again?
We
I love that.
did Harvest of Eden with them,
Right? Yeah,
like
I
one of the
figured that must have
iterations.
been what you were
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. Wet hop pilsner.
Oh, I
It
love
was
it.
good.
I
It was really
love it.
good. Yeah,
I
yeah.
I don't
love
know
it.
why I find it so funny. Have you ever done them more than once, Jen?
Like brewed the same beer again.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. One of the challenges for me with these collabs is just like, again, not to talk too much about logistics, but it's the logistics because
That's a fair.
what we've done is we have a tap dedicated to the Collaboration Nation series at all the beer towns. So I have to like try to work to figure out
The
like
next
with the
one to come in.
brewery, yeah, when the next one's coming, what's this like how big of a batch are we doing a double batch, how quickly is it going to sell through, so the sell through rate lines up with just past when we're first brewing the other collab, blah 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 blah. So once in a while we will brew a beer again, we'll bring it back by popular demand to act as like a stopgap for addressing that logistical challenge, but B, just because guests are asking for it. So actually,
Right.
we're serving Soleil Sorbet Kettle Sour at Beertown for Mother's Day, and that collab from Stormstade we launched last year or the year before last. So Justin actually just brought it back, and then that's also a really great way to throw him a bone to be like, I can commit to
A
a
bone
good
free.
amount of volume. Yeah,
Sorry.
and
I had
this is
to.
exactly
I had
it's
to.
exactly it. You had to because there's so many bones. There's bones
Bone pines is lone trees.
and lone pines and bone pines and
Sorry for throwing
there
you off.
had no that it, well I was just thinking there has to be there's a couple combinations we didn't do. So if the
Of the,
staff really want to, you know, try
com-
and
I think you
just
should.
freak out at me, we might do it.
What's the Infinity Stones? You need to complete the glove thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here. What's the other combination? Lone
What is the other combination? Oh,
lone pine, bone tree, lone tree, bone pine.
Well,
uh,
I mean, those are the combos if you keep the name in the same, like if you keep the
in the
words
It's in
same
in
the
the same
same
order.
order.
place.
Yeah.
The only other way to do would be if you were to do like Pine Tree and Lone Bone.
That's exactly it. Lone bone. Yeah.
I
Right.
feel like it'd be rude not to, because I actually like looking at these. I'm gonna wash these cans and put them on the shelf because I think it's cool as shit that we got all four of them, like to represent that. I think it's like, I don't know. I like marketing. We have I own a marketing agency. I think it's like genius. So like if you can do the
Thank
lone,
you.
what did you just say, Nate? Lone bone and pine
Lone
tree.
bone.
Pine Tree and Lone
Oh,
Bone.
pine
Pine
tree
tree.
is
Pine
like
tree.
that writes itself. Obviously, that's the West Coast, and lone
Yeah.
bone is the haze.
The haze.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you should
Those
do it, Jen.
names were thrown around, I will say. Like
Okay.
before we go to try the next one, I just do want to take a second to shout out to Terry and Emma.
Yes, I saw that on the
These
can.
are two, yeah, these are two loyal beer geeks in Kitchener-Waterloo region that like just simply drink great beer, and they don't have kids. They spend a lot of their spare time just like going to all the beer events in Ontario, traveling abroad, drinking beer. They don't really have a social following online because they don't care about that. They just want good beer.
Right. Good for
And
them.
they've been coming, like, I've seen them at so many events. They've been coming to Beertown Waterloo almost since its inception. And so, actually, a few years ago, they were about to check in their 1000th check in of Lone Pine on Untapped. So I contacted Sam at Sawdust Brewery and we threw them a little party at Beertown Waterloo.
That's so
And then
cute.
we
Aw.
they did a canning run and stamped their names on the bottom of the can saying like Terry and Emma. And so the reason I bring them up is because When we launched Bone Tree on tap full time at Beertown, Terry and Emma were like the first over there to have their regular Lone Pine and their Bone Tree because they had fallen in love with Third Moon throughout the pandemic. And then they posted, like, who do we need to talk to merge these two beers? And I saw that and I was like, we're going to do it. We're going to make it happen. And I replied to Terry, and then Bebo popped in and replied. And then the next day I called the breweries, and
Made
the
it
rest
happen.
is history. Yeah.
I love that.
Is so cool.
Yeah.
Organic from the community who actually consumes the beer 1,000 times, which is unheard of. Like, that is so deeply spectacular in a world of the ticker culture that Nate and we've talked about this a bunch on the podcast and outside it, where everyone wants the newest thing, but they've gone for the tried and true thing 1,000 times. I don't know if I've ever drank anything, I don't know, 10 times. Like, I know I have, but you know what I'm saying. Nobody's drank anything 1,000 times except Terry and Emma, obviously. That is so cool. Good for them.
Exactly.
They deserve the props, man.
I messaged them today to ask what their check-in was for Bone Tree, and they said it's around 100, so it's a lot less. But Bone Tree hasn't been around for that long, and that's more than I've had it. Like,
that's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, Third Moon is celebrating their 3rd anniversary, so to have 100 of the same beer in 3 years, that and especially in 2023, that's quite a lot.
Genuinely impressive, and it's cool, and I think it's like it's almost cooler to talk about that in the context of that ticker sort of thing where everyone wants the newest thing, where Nate and I have kind of talked about it a bunch lately. When we did that West Coast episode, we were talking about something like Lone Pine, like, what, this is just available, it's just there, it's in the LCBO, and it's fucking insane. It's exceptional beer. We all should be drinking it more often. Whereas everyone's always, when I say everyone, a lot of the craft beer community, the nerds and such, are always trying to worry about that next new thing and so on and so forth. So it's very, very cool to hear of people who are sort of like wearing that on their sleeves, that they're, no, I've drank Bone Tree 100 times, I drank Lone Pine 1,000 times. Like, that's amazing.
100%. And we're all in the interest of, I like to think, like, seeing the dial move a little bit in terms of market share for craft breweries, and you have to wonder what their bread and butter is, right? Like, I want to, when I go to the LCBO once in a while, I do pick up Lone Pine because I have some other great stuff in my fridge, but I want them to keep selling the shit out of it, so they can do the fun experimental stuff.
I couldn't agree more. And that's the balance, though. It's getting the fun new stuff. Like today, a lot of the launch, the anniversary beers went on sale, and you're able to go get them. But don't forget that you can get Bone Tree at Beertown everywhere, and you can typically get the cans from most cool retailers, almost year round. And that was just such a, I like, once again, I'm crazy for not having it beforehand. I really thought I had, but here we are. And it's exceptional. It's crazy. It's just such phenomenal beer that we're so lucky to have this on our our back door type of thing in Canada. So with that, shall we move to the 4th beer to complete the current series until we do those 2 new ones?
I think so.
I love it. This is like really, really good. I can't believe that a 6-month-old IPA is this good. I would never in my life think a 6-month-old IPA could hold up this well. I'm not just saying it because we're on the air. Like, this is actually like extraordinarily drinkable, and typically it never is.
No, I'm actually, as I said, I was really nervous, and
but you quantified it, so we're okay, and that's all that matters. And I would actually finish if
I'd love to.
Moving on,
I'd love to see this one brewed again because it is so good fresh. I would order that again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and no doubt, I think we will. Like, don't quote me here because of course there's other breweries and partners that we have lined up.
Of course.
we may do a few international collabs. I really like keeping it close to home. But I think the thing is the recipe's there. And we do have guests coming in and asking for it. So we'll probably do it again. We also have our rotational taps. So, we can run our collab and then put a collab on the rotational taps. No problem. That's what we're doing this weekend with Soleil.
Oh, I love it. We can talk about that after as well. I think we should definitely talk about that. So this beer, if we may let the folks know, this is Lone Tree, the Third Moon, Sawdust City, and Beertown side. So this is brewed from Third Moon, a West Coast IPA, which is always fun to see Third Moon, who are obviously extraordinarily well known for their haze, come through the West Coast, which they are known to do from time to time. They've dropped. It's not like this is not the first, but it's not like it's a common occurrence, which makes this all the more exciting. To be fair,
100%. And like Bone Pine, we've really both breweries decided to kind of stick to the same way of doing the recipe, where in this case, because it's more of a West Coast, they basically did the malt body of Lone Pine, and then we use the hop bill of Bone Tree. So this is just all Citra.
Yo, that is
an all Citra West Coast.
Love that. I did struggle at first with like whether we were going to call them West Coasts, East Coasts, but
I think it's fair too. Who, Nate, you could probably say this better than me, but I'm pretty sure that, say, a bunch of breweries we've had on the pod, including Troy from Badlands, would say that like IPAs are now, if you say the word IPA, it means New England. So you do have to typically specify if an IPA is a West Coast, because people would get it if they didn't know and be like, "The fuck is this?"
Yeah, definitely.
Based on the people you were talking about before, Jen, where folks who don't even know that this exists that were drinking Lone Pine, I'm like, "Hey, what's this all about?" type of thing.
Exactly. And then also I think like the added layer of it coming from Third Moon, it's like,
it's trippy,
yeah, it's super, super trippy.
It's like
like why the hell can I see through this Third Moon beer?
What is happening? What's that group on Facebook, Nate? What's it called again?
The Canadian Craft Beer Society.
Yeah, so those mans out there, Bebo was saying like they have essentially like it's like those are kind of more the gateway Facebook group. Are you familiar with them, Jen? That group?
Yes,
Yep.
I am. I think I'm on the group, but I don't pipe in that often.
Oh, neither do I.
Yeah,
just to watch.
That's the same with us.
Yeah. You just do your thing. You just tape and watch. But those individuals who are often a lot of sort of like just newbies, gateway people who are discovering. It's like Third Moon has like found their way into that world somehow, some way, and they've become like, it's almost like that's part of the reason. I mean, they were already because they had the homebrews thing beforehand, like in Bebo was doing, he did that collab, he won the contest, he did the collab beer with Great Lakes, which is super dope, but people have discovered them through that group, so there's this whole sort of like maybe less beer nerdy folks who like in the typical way, who are maybe newer to it and sort of discovered Third Moon through that, and that's sort of changed the demographic of sort of who they are, which actually, blessing and a curse, I imagine, but it's allowed them to sort of expand a little more.
It's had its benefits. That group also has a lot of problems, as we've as we've also discussed. Like that group can be incredibly fickle and can and can turn on a lot of breweries in kind of really not cool ways, which we don't really need to get into here. But I mean, it's the same thing like we were talking about before with ticker culture and all that, and all of the negativity that can sometimes bring. That group also does have its elements of as well. But these kind of things come with any kind of like publicly amassing like kind of single focus type thing.
Yeah.
100%. And actually, now that I think about it, I do remember early on when Third Moon opened, seeing somebody post in that group about Third Moon and thinking that was sort of a regular. And then when we obviously first when they opened, like there was no way we were going to pour stuff on tap from them. They were still figuring out like production. It was during the pandemic. But I brought in cans of their product for like our rotational bottle lists. And I think somebody posted in that group about picking up product from us that was Third Moon. And I thought, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where I get it. I feel like it's sometimes when you sort of expose, like maybe there's people who don't understand what you're doing, and maybe then they get a little bit critical, but they don't really get what it is, and that, you know, but then also that exposes the brand to so many more people, which therefore grows the business. So it's sort of like a two-pronged sword type of thing, but you know, they take it in stride, and they really try to. They're just such humble dudes. Like you said earlier, like they're such cool guys they were massive. Have you ever seen Chris's basement?
So I haven't seen it in person, but I've seen like pictures, and I think I don't know where I saw pictures from, but it was before I met him, and I was like, okay, we're gonna get along.
That's insane. Oh yeah. So
it's crazy.
We did a 5-hour podcast in 2020 with them, and Chris at the very end of the podcast for maybe an hour and a half, he was just running the show, and he was giving us like he was probably had his on his phone, and he was showing the whole thing, like the whole ceiling was chicken wire and bottles. Every corner of this place it was just the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. I've never been there, and I think he's in Hamilton too, so I gotta fucking holler at him. But it was just so crazy, and they're just such like dudes who are in the trading scene, which is what you were talking about earlier yourself when you sort of got into that. I personally I only ever trade with mates, like, which made it a bit easier, but because I've heard some horror stories, but that's how you obviously get the best stuff. So those guys were really just in the scene, and they just love beer, and it's just, I think it's probably helped them sort of get a little bit further because they've been on the drinker side for so long, and just been just trading with people and going to different places and trying beer. So when it comes to their own stuff, they're not like snobby about it or pretentious about it. They're just like, look, this is the beer we want to drink. We're going to make this the best we can, whatever style it may be. And we want everyone to drink it because it's good stuff, which is very, very cool. And obviously it's evident through the lineup we've gone through tonight. And the fact that I just think it's almost like just so forward thinking, working with someone like Beertown. That's what I thought. It was like the average,
It is.
I don't want to say it, but the hype pretentious brewery, which there isn't even that many, but I'm just trying to paint the picture of the type of brewery that we're talking about, maybe wouldn't be as inclined to be so chill to just like try to appeal to a gateway crowd.
100%.
So
like,
thoughtful.
and I've experienced that approaching some breweries, and like by the same token, that's not to throw that mentality under the bus, because it exists for a reason. Like, you know, I've seen some horror draft beer systems out there. Like I once went to a space that didn't really serve a lot of craft beer, but they were using pop gas to push their beer through the lines, which is just like, that's
unheard of, right?
Okay, it's completely unheard of. It's like you're filling your keg with oxygen. That's not going to be great for the beer.
No.
So I think like you know, breweries, especially smaller ones that are just so in the scene and just want to brew good beer, have kind of been burned in the past. And so it would, you know, to work with a concept that's larger, where there's more shit that can go wrong, it's sometimes you want to protect that, right?
Yeah.
And you need to. It's really important to do that, because not all of it do. So but I guess they must have obviously clearly, it's so obvious that people have been listening for the last, where we're at, hour and 52 minutes, that, you know, obviously you are a very passionate craft beer enthusiast, and that's been extraordinarily clear through your history in beer and your venue ownership, which is super dope. because I can speak to experience. The APK was so fire. Some of my favorite shows of my life have always been in London. Crowds were so fire. They always bought the most merch. They responded so well to the music, and the beer was killer. It was just such a great venue. So I'm very happy to hear that was your brainchild. It made me. I was really hoping when you were talking, I was like, don't tell me it's APK. I was gonna say, but I wanted to wait till you said it. I was like, okay, amazing. And you know that you're so passionate about this stuff that you know they would have seen that in the brand, in what Beertown represents, and being able to be like, you know what, this makes sense for us to be able to tap into a larger crowd, because people do often forget that craft beer at the end of the day is a business, and it does need to attract more people to be successful for longevity, and you know these guys saw it, and if it's almost like Third Moon are the cosign to be like, hey, you know, these guys know what's up, man. Like if anyone else of our ilk wants to get in on this, like I'm telling you, this is these guys know their shit. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, I do too, and it's like the thing is though we will make mistakes, we sometimes do, but like, you know, kudos to Third Moon for wanting to take that risk, you know. And I don't want to call it a risk, right? But just like, you know, having your beer in that many spaces, and knowing that we're going to take care of it, and wanting to, you know, let us put down a big crazy IPA in front of somebody who's maybe never had an IPA before, which we try not to do. You know, we teach our team to how to sell beer and how to recommend beers, but sometimes people just order Bone Tree and they drink Bone Tree, and it's their first experience with a hazy New England IPA. So
you can't really go.
You know
wrong
what?
there.
If you're gonna choose a hazy IPA to have first, like you could do a lot worse.
Could not agree
100%.
And with that, can we cheers, guys?
Yeah, I was
Cheers.
just gonna say, like
Lone
I'm
Tree.
desperate to take a sip here.
I'm so sorry, we're
Cheers.
yapping. Cheers. This is fascinating. This has been such a fascinating ride tonight. This is glorious. It's
So I was thinking.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
You are not cutting me off.
All right. Yeah, I was thinking like so. It's like so. This is my second time having this one now, and I remember like thinking like I was fascinated to think like a West Coast all Citra, because that's not typical with most West Coast. You know, you're thinking you're thinking classic sea hop kind of thing. You know, you're like you're thinking Columbus, you're thinking Chinook, you're thinking Cascade, and whatnot. Citra, you're generally thinking a haze bomb, but like. In my mind, kind of like maybe like Citra is definitely is definitely contributing a lot, but I feel like this is one of those things that reminds you that the malt bill really influences quite a lot of what of what turns into the final product, and especially in a West Coast, like the malt, like the work that the malt does is not to be forgotten.
No.
It like in kind of what makes the difference in these styles.
100%. It like, and just to that point, like to go back to the education piece, it really helped to solidify in a lot of our bartender and front of house team members' minds, like that key difference in what malt is being chosen oftentimes for a West Coast IPA, and how a brewer selects a malt bill, and that it's not just one type of malt. So we did a lot of tastings where we'd like pour them side by side. So, you know, I've got both the West Coast here, and, you know, there's a slight color variation, but like really not that much. You can see through it. And you're just getting all those like classic kind of like caramelly, yummy little notes to it that remind me of the olden days.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what it is, right? Like it's interesting. So have you personally, Jen, did you ever sort of like slip off the West Coast train at all? Or were you kind of like always like, this is my thing the whole time?
Oh, like when hazy sort of became a thing in Ontario?
Yep, exactly.
Oh, 100% I slipped off.
So did I. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
they
I
do too.
think
Yeah, we
yeah,
all did.
yeah. We all yeah. I'm sure we all did. Like I remember having Hetty Topper for the first time and that blowing my mind. And then seeing more and more of like speaking of Bronin, for example, like when we opened Beertown Burlington, Bronin was one of the few from High Road was one of the few sort of like more hazy type of IPAs that was being brewed pretty regularly in that region. And just remember it being like a kind of a game changer for me in terms of what an IPA could be. And like obviously we're paying homage to West Coast IPAs, but like the thing that I always loved about beer was its adaptability. And therefore like diversity of flavors and aromas that you could get from it, and the fact that there aren't as many rules in place, right? It's just like, sure, we've got the BJCP, we've got sets of style guidelines, but people are constantly breaking the rules and trying new things.
Yeah.
And so anytime there's something new, even if it's like maybe there's not a perfect place for it in the beer world just yet, I can get behind that.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's been like such like I feel like West Coast came back for us within the last couple of years. Like it was like I remember like 2016, 2017, it was like all about searching for haze because no one was really doing it up here, and it was having to go to the States. And then now in like late 2017, 2018, everyone was doing it and we were trying to find the best stuff. And I feel like, that kind of, I don't know if it necessarily got exhausted, but it just sort of West Coast broke it up again.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, I was living in Montreal. Nate's in Ottawa, which is right on the border anyway. Sankey and Baron, who is a phenomenal brewery in Aylmer, Quebec. They do some of the best West Coasts I could say probably I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And, excuse me, they probably turned, I don't know about you, Nate, but I'd say turned it back onto West Coast.
I was literally just thinking the same thing, is that they
Yeah.
were
Which is the
probably
shirt
the
Nate's
ones
wearing
that
right
really
now.
got me back on that train.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
I
made
would
you
say
realize-
the same for me.
Oh yeah, you had some Sankey stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
okay. So
There you go.
they're the goats. I mean, they just their anniversary is the same day as Third Moon.
Third Moon did a collab with them, right? Yeah.
They do a collab every
They,
year.
they,
They
they've
do collab
done,
every year.
both of them do a collab
Every
together
year.
every year for
So
their
this year's called
anniversary.
Parallel. So they did that.
Parallel, yeah. Yeah.
And this year, BAOS did a collab with Sankey. We did a collab called Straya, which is I'm from Australia, so it's called Straya. It's an XPA, an Australian extra pale ale,
Very cool.
which is of their West Coast style, because we chose to make it a West Coast style because that's what Dimitri does exceptionally well with all Aussie hops.
Yeah.
And West Coast, it's just like, it's something that's like, we found ourselves, when I say we, Nate and I, and it sounds like, Jen, you're exactly like us. We found ourselves over the last maybe, 12 to 24 months, just, you're having the average night drinking, and normally you might have a crispy and then have a couple of different haze or whatever, but we found ourselves just reaching for a West Coast IPA more and more often once we started to discover like what they could be. And the fact that Sankey have 12, 15 different, maybe I'm boosting, but a significant number of SKUs that are all very different that they bring back, that are just so, from 5% from like juniper to up to like, Sitka, the 8% type of thing, and named after the different trees. And it was just so like, wow, like this is what this style could be. And it took sort of that, and then, rediscover Lone Pine and, Nate, please remind me what the other ones for Ontario we were doing. I don't know why I'm having a blank.
Probably. Did you Mad
fuck.
Tom?
What was?
Bone Shaker?
Great
It
one.
wasn't
Bone
Mad
Shaker,
Tom,
yep.
but that one was
Those
in
two are
was
phenomenal.
in along the conversation of the like of Lone Pine along being one of the more accessible ones in Ontario. I'm drawing a complete blank on what the other Ontario West Coast one, but
No, I
like
can't
if I'm
think of
thinking of another one that I had recently, like Bellwood's Pig that they
Yep.
put out recently, that that one's a beaut.
Yeah,
And,
and
like,
Third
so few
Moon
and far
last
between.
2 years ago, I think it was Conjuration 13.
They did do a conjuration.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if it was 13. Don't quote me on that. but it was like
I should never
around
find out.
skiing season. I cross country ski,
All
and
right, okay.
the
You are
the
here.
in, so I take my beers out. You know, I ski my 10 kilometers. I crack a beer. But I just also like, I think you raise a really good point in that there is sort of, it's not just like these breweries are making West Coast IPAs like they used to be. There has been sort of a slight uh, change and like a massive exploration of what they can be. And a fine tuning of certain recipes that's got me really excited about West Coast again.
Mm-hmm.
You are correct, by the way, Jen. It's number 13 is a double. Was an 8% West Coast IPA. Well done. Great memory.
There you go.
So good.
But it has
There
got
you
excited. I just feel like West Coasts are like, whilst there's an element of education that's required to maybe some of the newbies who've never experienced it, I feel like for us, I would argue it's nostalgia. Like it's coming back. I got into beer properly in 2011, so I wasn't as early as yourself. But that's what we came out. I remember being there when Mad Tom came out, and you know the early Flying Monkey stuff was crazy, and there was some Trafalgar stuff and Great Lakes and all these different breweries that in Ontario, and Sawdust, of course, and Lone Pine and blah blah blah. All these different things were killer.
Nickelbrook was another, like Nickelbrook was
Nickelbrook
another one that
did
around,
Headstock.
like, that around that time.
Yeah.
That's what it was, Nate.
Everyone would really get
It was
into
Headstock.
a lot.
Headstock.
We drank Headstock.
Yeah, Headstock. Yeah.
Headstock is fucking bomb.
That was the one on the
It's
podcast that you were thinking of.
Good.
It's
They
exceptional.
would be so happy to hear that too. I'm gonna say that to John when I see him next week. We're
It's exceptional.
taking the chefs up to their Etobicoke facility, and he's always pushing me on his IPA. And I'm like, yeah, you brew some good IPAs. Headstock's great.
I love Nickelbrook.
Oh yeah.
I will never forget being.
And like one of my literally one of my top 5 favorite beers of the last 2 years. Like while we're on the West Coast train, Fairweather California King.
The California King.
Fucking money. I love that one so much.
It's so good. I think I listed that. I did like a little blog post, and it was that. I like when it came out, I was just drinking it by the droves.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Same.
Yeah, really well done.
Same.
Yeah.
So when they do come out, like we just really appreciate it, and I feel like maybe they just need a little more attention, and it's, you know, venues like Beertown that can give that attention to it, you know, whether it's drawing attention to West Coast through Lone Pine, through collabs like this particular Lone Tree one, which is exceptional, by the way. The more I'm drinking this, I'm like,
it's nice.
It's money. Like there's so much I think it's kind of important to, whether it's teaching the Gen Z folks who maybe have only come in off haze and stuff about what West Coast could be, or just sort of, you know, reminding people like, hey, like this exists and this is, you know, this is fantastic, whether it's Lone Pine or Headstock or things like that are regularly available. I don't know. I feel like it's sort of it rounds your palate out a little bit, and it sort of breaks it up. You know, if we're all haze obsessed, which it seems like that's the predominant mindset from everybody, and there's nothing wrong with that because I love, my fridge is full of haze. It is, you know, I'm always stressed about it because them shits die, and it is what it is. But the West Coast breaks it up, and I feel like it's just so nice. It's just really, really nice to be able to have a great, like, nice piney, citrusy, pithy West Coast IPA that just hits the spot in a totally different way, and you're just like, oh wow, like this is what, you know, for us this is how it used to be, and for newer folks, like, oh, this is a total different thing. And this is why people say I don't like IPAs, because they're bitter. Yeah, this is bitter. This is the one you don't like, not the chicken soup one. But there's something to this, is almost like a little more nuanced. Like I feel like this is more not elevated, advanced.
Funnily enough, like it kind of now is. It feels like we've sort of come
because it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, but yeah, I mean, like with our Gen Z younger staff, like, you know, I'm finding sometimes it's, you know, having them drink more of the hazy stuff first, and then slowly moving them over to the West Coast, and then contextualizing the history of IPAs.
Does that help?
I like to think it does, because I think talking about the history of beer and where we started and where we are gives it this sense of like importance. And I really encourage the team to not just think about like pouring a beer, but thinking about like what it means to do that. And you can approach that at a lot of different angles. Yeah, I mean, like I always talk to the team about, you know, when home brewing was legalized in 1979, because I try to show them how new the scene is in a way, right? Like, and how much it's changed in that short period of time, and how they get to be a part of that. They get to be a part of that change. So yeah, I'd say it's important, but
you're like
It's really cool.
a beer evangelist, Jen. Like this is like it's really important what you're doing, like schooling the new generation on what this means. Like I didn't know that about the homebrewing thing in '79. That's crazy.
yeah, that was in the
Yeah, no, I
States.
didn't
So
know.
that's that was in the
But
States.
still,
What president? I don't know. He signed the
'79 would have
order.
been Nixon or Reagan or one of those cats.
Yeah, I really should know. Yeah, I think you're right. But the point is that's what I think kickstarted like homebrewing and people getting back into, you know, and
Making beer.
what am I to say? Like I'm not a beer historian by any means, but that's how I've always thought about the American craft beer revolution, and then that obviously influenced us here. So yeah, and it's not just me, it's our whole team, and like and the people behind the scenes that like allow me to kind of move the beer training in a direction that talks to these points, because we know as we grow, if we want to continue to serve good beer, we have to do that. We have a responsibility to do that.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
This is great. Was there anything else we wanted to touch on? Because that was like such a nice poignant kind of like wrapping up vibe right there. But was there anything else we wanted to make sure that we went through this evening, folks?
I have one question that should have that should have a really quick answer. How often do you guys end up serving the Beermageddon Paddletron 3000, the 35-ounce flights?
A good question. Stupidly often.
Really?
Yeah, I would say like especially say like Beertown, Newmarket, which is technically in East Gwillimbury. Second weekend we were opening on a Friday night, we served 6 of them in one night, which is a lot.
Wow.
So that's
I'm
just
surprised.
to reiterate, that's 35-ounce pours in one paddle for $94. With a minimum of 4 people, because I imagine there's some legalities in there. That's 30 pours.
30 pours.
I imagine that would be what, like a probably 10-minute job to pour each paddle?
So we actually have a running record across the beer towns, because I'm always trying to like
Guinness World Record thing? Okay.
improve drink time. So the
Let's
current record is 2 minutes.
Woo!
And
that's not what
it's closer to 3 minutes. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
All right.
But, you know, I don't want to build that expectation in everyone's minds for all the listeners. Like if you come in, let your server know in advance you're thinking of getting a Beermageddon Paddletron. The bartenders will start to get it ready, and then the server will bring it in, and yeah, you'll have it in like 7 minutes.
That's not bad. Should that be the podcast?
Wow, that's really fast.
That should be the podcast name, Beermageddon Paddle.
And to just do some quick maths for everyone, that's 7.5 20-ounce pints.
Yeah.
But poured individually, which takes longer because you got to clean every individual 5-ounce glass.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
I was just talking in terms of total volume, not in
total
terms
volume
of pour time.
And
which is a lot of volume.
It's a lot of volume, and actually our sampler glasses are 7 ounces. But we don't. All of our serving sizes are listed 2 ounces less than the top of the glass, because we don't charge for the head unless it's like a Belgian, like say it's like a La Trappe and there's a pour line, so the glass might be larger, but it's an 8.5 ounce pour line, so we list 8.5 ounces. So
gotcha.
Depending on who's pouring that night, it will be a little bit more.
I love it. That's phenomenal. Also, the name, I almost feel like the name of the podcast could be Beermageddon Paddletron 3000.
That was a guest contest too, so a
really?
guest
it's
submitted
ridiculous.
that. Yeah,
the ridiculousness is very, very appealing. I love ridiculousness, because beer, we're just getting drunk, man. Like, why do we have to take it so seriously?
That's just it.
It's an art, it's a science, but it's ridiculous too, because here we are.
Yeah.
I love it. I just feel like, honestly, Jen, thank you so much for everything,
No,
for your
thank
time.
you.
And you've so thoughtful. I know I said that to you off air, but I just want to say it on air. I just think you're just so thoughtful. The approach to this episode with the curation of the beer, with providing the menu so we can get some context, and the beautiful glass. I just thank you so much for your time. This has been awesome. You're just such a passionate person in craft beer, and I feel like the industry needs more people like you. You are the type of individual who are pushing this thing forward, and you're very selfless about it, and you just give a shit about beer. So thank you for everything you're doing for craft beer in Ontario and beyond.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And thanks to both of you for doing things like this, giving me content to digest and listen to in my spare time, and also for pushing the industry forward, and to all the amazing breweries out there, because
Yes.
it's honestly a privilege to be able to work with them.
Shouts to y'all, man.
Yeah.
This has been phenomenal. I knew this was going to be super interesting. I didn't think it'd be this much fun. So this is amazing. You're a gem. Let's wrap this up. Stick around afterwards, and we'll finish up offline. But where can everybody find Beertown online? And maybe in person, if there's a way, the best way for them to sort of figure out where their nearest Beertown location is.
Yeah, totally. So our URL is really simple. It's beertown.ca. So you can go to beertown.ca. There's a tab that says location, so you can find out where we're located, all the different cities we're in. We're in 10 cities at this point.
That's
just
dope.
spread throughout southwestern Ontario. That's just it. So we're close to home. And then even on there, you could see our live lists. We've partnered with Untappd, so you can see, like, if you're more into, like, you know the scene, the beers, and you just want to see what we're pouring on our rotational taps. There's like a live update from Untappd every morning. You can check it out.
Hell yeah, I love it. And is it there on Instagram and Facebook? Like, is it just I think it was at Beertown Public House?
Yeah, it's at Beertown PH, I believe, for Instagram. Facebook, we actually have different accounts for all the different beer towns, or maybe it's changed to Public House. I really should know that.
I found one here that's Beertown
Looks like
Public.
look on Instagram. Looks like Beertown Public.
Beertown
Yeah.
Public. You are correct. We did
Yes.
change it a few years ago, so it's Beertown Public.
Which is perfect, because I was tagging that the whole time when I was posting. I was doing like stories as we were drinking, and I was like, "Fuck, I hope that's right." I didn't check beforehand, but yes,
That's okay. I should have told you. I should have done my
No,
research.
it's my fault.
I'm like
Please.
constantly on the account, working with our social team. If something gets, posted, or I think we need to like change verbiage, so you'd think I'd know. But
This is great. Do you want anyone to follow you personally, or are you happy for Beertown?
I'm happy for Beertown. If people want to follow me, they can. It's a weird handle, though. I don't really spend a lot of time on there, so Beertown's the front runner. But if anybody ever has questions and they want a personal contact, they can reach out. I'm an open book.
What's your handle?
Oh my God, that's gonna be it's Wenawaria.
Oh, that's a word right there.
It's a word. It'll be changing. But yeah, WENNEUEREIA, because when I made it, I did not intend to use it publicly, and then things evolved. So
now you're here. Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
Thank you so much, Jen. So stick around. Nathaniel, my friend, where can everyone find you online, sir?
Everywhere it's at NathanDoesBeer, and right here co-hosting BAOS podcast. And Jen, to echo everything Cee said, thanks so much for coming on. This has really been a genuine pleasure, and it was great to learn more about what goes on behind the scenes at Beertown, and the amount of work that goes into kind of curating the beer and restaurant experience was really something special to learn about, and it was great to chat about. So thank you.
Thank you.
I love it. Guys, we'll hang out after, but everybody, I really hope you enjoyed this one. This was fascinating. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope if you are in the glorious province of Ontario that you're able to visit a Beertown location soon. Thank you, Jen. You are wonderful. Nathaniel, as always, you're a G. Guys, thank you for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, and hit the notification bell, Nathan.
Ding.
So you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcasts every single social platform online. We drop new episodes every Wednesday. Now we are back in action. We are here in Canada. We are dropping every week. God damn it, we're not taking any time off. This summer's about to be a problem. Yeah. What do I normally say? Oh, yeah, give us a 5-star review if you listen on Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts. You're like, yeah, this is kind of fire. Jennifer's dropping gems. And you're like, we'll hit that 5-star. Hit it for Jen. Hit it for Jen. Don't do it for me or Nate. Hit it for Jen. And it helps. And we'll see you in the next episode, Joe. Peace.
Oh, yeah. Thumbnail.
Oh, fuck. See? Honestly, this is why I can't do this job by myself. I'm gonna hit these. Yes, I'm gonna hit the flagships. Nate's got all of them. Jen's got the other 2.
Oh gosh.
Take your time, Jen. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay, you ready? Oh, show your face. Yeah, unless you don't want to.
Oh, I gotta show my face.
Yeah.
I don't know how this works.
So put your face to the side and hold the cans up. There you go. It's difficult. Trust me. Every single time we're all struggling. Ready? You good?
Yeah.
We got it. Boom.
Great.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next week. Let me get out of the way. Peace, y'all. Peace.